for support. But I was mentioning this morning that we work with various organizations to design and launch customized challenges, which allow us to find, vet, support innovators that address the specific issues that would achieve the organization's social impact goals. Whether it's solutions that improve care for patients with rare diseases with Amgen, that use AI to measure learning outcomes with the Gates Foundation, or that support women and girls in STEM with Tiger Global. So on the next panel, we're going to hear about the work that we are doing with HPE Foundation and the Anti-Slavery Collective on such a custom challenge, finding solutions that improve and scale resources for survivors of modern slavery. Thank you.
And now, Taina Bien-Aimé, Executive Director, Coalition Against Trafficking in Women. Jason Newman, Vice President, Corporate Affairs, Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Sarah Woodcock, CEO, the Anti-Slavery Collective. And moderator, Cara Tabachnick, News Editor, CBS News, and Director, Journalism Center on Global Trafficking.
Wow. Good afternoon, everybody. We're here at sort of the end of an incredibly information-packed day, and we're about to bring you a little bit more. I want to start first to orient everybody to kind of understand a little bit more what we mean when we talk about modern slavery and human trafficking. So I'm going to open it up with Sarah. If you can tell us a little bit, a definition, very brief, about what modern slavery is and what people should know about it. And then we'll move to Taina. We'll talk about human trafficking.
Sure. Thank you. So modern slavery, first thing to understand is it's an umbrella term. So it describes a variety of practices that involve the extreme exploitation of people, exploitation of their bodies, of their labor, and it's through deception, it's through coercion, and it's through force. And I think obviously there are people far away from here who are working in mines, in brick kilns, picking cocoa, but there are also people here in the US, in the UK, who are working in homes, who are working in car washes, who are working in nail salons. So it's really a big definition.
Right, and you hear that a lot of times interchangeably with trafficking, and so it's easy to confuse both the terms. So can you just bring us a little bit further, Taina, into what trafficking is, what it means, and what we can understand about it, and a little bit about how it does differ, if at all, from modern slavery.
Well, hi, everybody, and thank you so much for being here, and it's an honor for me to be here. So we base the definition of human trafficking on international law. So there's an international legal instrument called the Palermo Protocol, or the UN Protocol. It has a longer name, which I'll spare you. But it is the internationally recognized definition of human trafficking, and it's basically anyone who entices, transfers, harbors someone. So the means by which people traffic are very broad, and then they traffic them for certain forms of exploitation, including labor, sexual exploitation, organ removal, slavery, slavery-like practices, and servitude. So slavery is just one of the many forms of exploitation. What's also very important, over 190 countries have ratified the Palermo Protocol, so that law should be incorporated in every country's laws, which is not the case, domestic laws, including the United States. Like, we don't meet the international legal standards of human trafficking. And also what's really important is consent is irrelevant to one's exploitation. So I'll leave it at that.
Right, so just to kind of just one more point about consent. So it is irrelevant to exploitation. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit for our audience? We've seen that, I don't know, maybe this week in a very large case here in New York, which we discussed about. And I think consent is a very confusing term for a lot of people. So what do you mean by it is not relevant to whether you've been trafficked or not?
So, I mean, the example we use often is, let's say you're a woman in Ukraine and you're looking for a job and you see an ad in New York to be either a restaurant hostess or even dance in a strip club. You're just like, oh, I can dance. That's fine. I will sign up because I'm in dire need of money. And then you get to New York City and you are then sold repeatedly, raped repeatedly. But so someone would say, well, you consented to this, like you knew you were going to work in a strip club, and you should have known that this was what was going to happen. But under international law, it's irrelevant. Like you can't, and it's also a human rights principle. Like you cannot consent to your own exploitation. You can't consent to a human rights violation that is being done against you. And so I think that's really...
Right. So it makes it very tricky, let's say, for the person that wants to understand this or get involved in it. It makes it tricky for even people that are working within the industry, right? To really know the scope and to understand really how this permeates our society. So one of the solutions or tools that we always turn to is technology. Jason, I'd love for you to pick up a little bit on how HP has worked with technology or thought about technology as a tool or solution to understanding modern slavery and human trafficking.
Sure, and just to start, I want to say a quick thank you to MIT Solve and the Anti-Slavery Collective, because the partnership on this challenge has been truly outstanding, and the last 3 months have been very inspirational for me personally, and I'm looking forward to kind of the next steps. As we look at technology, as a technology company, obviously we feel that technology can be used in very innovative ways to solve some of society's most pressing challenges. And that's obviously very true for the issue of modern slavery. There's a lot of areas of need within this issue, obviously, and I think as we were starting to think about this challenge, we really started to hone in on how we're providing support to survivors as a key area, because we thought it was a ripe area for where technology could be a disruptor and really improve the ability and the support that we're providing to survivors. As many of you probably know, survivors are often having difficulty getting access to key services, legal, financial, employment, obviously a huge one, health, emotional support. And if there's areas, one area where technology is really good is to be a connector, right? And if done in the right way, this was an area where we thought we could really add some support and provide better support on the ground to survivors. And I think when we make the announcements here in a few short minutes, I would encourage all of you to go look at each of these, because they're all doing some really innovative stuff in terms of really helping survivors and how you can use technology to do that. So there's obviously many other areas of need and other ways that technology can be used, but that's really what we focused in on here in this challenge.
So besides the solvers, who have, of course, been doing amazing, innovative things and ways to tackle this problem, is there other technology that has come into your guys' purview that you could talk about that has been helpful? One of the things that you do run into, and I run into as a journalist all the time, is data. How do you collect it? How do you know the data is good? How do you clean it? How do you code it? It helps with so many things within this world. So if you could talk quickly, maybe starting with Sarah, and then to Taina, and then to you, Jason, about data and how you collect it, and some of the technology that has maybe helped you do that.
I mean, data is a huge challenge in this area, because human trafficking is by nature illegal, secretive, and hidden. So, data we do have are just based on estimates, so it's a real challenge, but there are incredibly interesting data sets that exist all over there. There's data sets from law enforcement, from border officials, there's data sets from people who work in safe houses who are collecting software information, and crucially, actually, I think there's corporates who are working with supply chain accountability and visibility organizations, and they're also collecting data, but it's just how do we get to a space where we're sharing incredibly sensitive data, and how do we...
Sharing is caring.
Yeah.
Taina?
So I'm not a technologist, so I'm in awe of everyone in this room who is. And it was really extraordinary to read the applications from the MIT Solve group of people, just incredible. Traffickers are unfortunately 800 yards ahead of law enforcement and the rest of us in the use of technology. I mean, it is the single most effective way. They traffic and exploit people, but having said that, the innovation, we also have to remember, our understanding of human trafficking, even from a legal perspective, is only 20 years old. So we're really at the very beginning understanding and trying to find solutions on how to address it. And I do think, just from the reading, I was honored to be one of the judges, and just the vision of seeing how important it is for survivors to tell their stories, because until recently, like, we didn't know who survivors were or how they could connect to each other. But the challenge is, as we mentioned, is that we are talking about detected victims. So right now, there's only like 1% of the population of detected traffic victims who actually get to services. So that's the magnitude of the problem. But
has anything helped you? Have you collect information about the survivors? Any particular technology, or is it more you're really dealing one by one in the human,
So, we focus primarily on sex trafficking, and so sex trafficking, like labor trafficking, it operates like a market, like any other market. Supply, demand, the incentive for profit. So we've had the opportunity to talk to technologists who actually look at the demand. So how do you attract, within the context of sex trafficking, like, who creates the market? And it's the demand, it's sex buyers. And so how do you capture them before they do the harm? And so that has been very, very exciting. And there's one app in particular that's called Street Grace, but hopefully there'll be a lot more innovative apps to help.
Solvers take note. Jason, can you tell us about any interesting technology that's come across your?
I think, data is a key challenge for us. And I think it's going to be a big focus for us going forward. As Sarah said, there is a lot of data out there, but it's actually siloed in different entities within corporations, within governments, nonprofit organizations, research institutions, et cetera. We currently use estimates, to decide to figure out how much is out there, right? But we still kind of lack a clear and measurable kind of a measurement framework to tell us how much is out there, where is it happening, and how do we know if we're making progress? One of the key things we're really focused on is how do we know that what we're doing is making an impact, right? And until we can kind of get to the data and really understand where it's happening and what is happening, we won't know if what we're doing is actually having an impact and when we're solving for the real need. And so I think that's one of the key things we're going to be looking at over the next year or so is how we can do that. And it does come down to figuring out how to share data in a way that protects privacy and other related concerns, but allows for technology like AI and machine learning to analyze some of that data in a way that can help us get a better picture. I think one of the things we need to do is to shine a light on this problem. I think data can help us shine that light if we do it in the right way and inspire people to action.
Yeah, it's going to be very tricky to get all those different organizations to talk to each other, especially ones that come from the law enforcement background where the data is protected and they certainly don't want to be free with it. So anybody that really likes a very tough problem, here it is. But we can all agree the scope is tremendous. Is that what you're seeing on the ground? Or talk a little bit about some of the stories you've seen on the ground that help cement the size of the problem.
Well, I think human trafficking it's part of our culture, which is also why it's so difficult to detect. So in labor trafficking, it could be the person who is doing your nails, or it could be the busboy in the restaurant, or the person who's sewing your clothes. For sex trafficking, we are in a culture that normalizes, sexualizes, commodifies human beings. Within the sex trade, we have, the whole system of prostitution and pornography. So it's very, very difficult for us to see it.
So let's not end on a low note. I don't know, time got away from me really quickly, so maybe let's just go with the three of you, starting with Sarah to the end. Just say one thing that has inspired you that you've seen in the last, in your work within this field.
So I'm particularly interested as an organization work on forced labor, and I think the innovations that are happening with corporates who are being driven by legislation to be much more thoughtful about their supply chains, I think is really going to shift
Supply chains and
things.
corporations, it's something they have to think about. Jason?
One of the things that really inspired me is the fact that we had 70 people and organizations apply for this challenge. And the fact that there is an ecosystem out there like that working on this issue and trying to address it is very inspiring to me. And, we want to...
More people solving this problem.
Exactly.
Solvers. Taina?
For me, it's just the survivors. The more we hear from them, they are really the solution to this issue.
It takes one person to make the change, right? Okay, so that brings us to the end of our discussion. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and thank you to the panelists for the wonderful work that they are doing. It is really appreciated. And we're going to hand it over to Sarah and Jason.
All right. So coming off that great panel discussion, we are thrilled to take a moment to update you all with some very exciting news. After much deliberation, we're very excited to say that we've selected 5 winners of the Supporting Survivors of Modern Slavery Challenge that we're ready to announce now, and we'll be awarding a total of $300,000 to support their work. Without further ado, our 3 runner-up prize winners receiving $50,000 each are HT Fusion Center,
Woo!
Alight, and Story mobile app. And I believe Jessica is in the room.
And we have 2 grand prize winners receiving $75,000 each, and they are Everfree and Golden Dreams. So I want to thank the HP Foundation and MIT Solve for our collaboration to launch this challenge. And we look forward to working with all of these teams to scale the impact. Thank you.
Thank you.